The movie starts with oceanographer Tom and his family, his wife Julia and their 2 children Cassie and Ben, going on a yacht trip in the Caribbean Sea. While Tom and Ben are fishing and Cassie is busy with her gadget, Julia goes for a swim. Suddenly something feels wrong to Julia. She looks around, but the sea is calm. Still, she feels scared, as if something big and dangerous is near her. At the same time, the yacht's instruments start acting strange, but Tom is too focused on fishing and doesn't notice. Julia feels more and more afraid, and soon she starts struggling in the water. She screams for help, but her family doesn't hear her. The water seems to pull her farther from the yacht. When the situation gets worse, Tom finally hears her cries. He quickly moves the yacht toward Julia and dives into the water. With the children's help, they pull Julia back onto the yacht and bring her back to life. Tom is upset because he always asks that everyone tells the others before going into the water. They are celebrating Ben's 13th birthday. Tom lights the candles on the cake and everyone congratulates Ben. Cassie takes a family photo. Just then, Cassie's boyfriend calls her and asks about the swim, but suddenly a storm starts in the background. Cassie is worried, but her boyfriend says he's safe. The call cuts off. Soon, the family feels the yacht shake and they run to the deck. They see big dead whales floating around the yacht. Tom says sometimes whales get lost during storms, but these ones are pushing the yacht, putting them in danger. Tom dives into the water and soon returns aboard, injured. Julia stitches up his shoulder, and Tom explains that the yacht's shafts seem bent, likely from a tail strike. Now they're unlikely to be able to sail away. Later, Cassie tries to re-establish communication, but there's no signal. Tom begins calculating their supplies. They have enough water for about 4 days. Ominous sounds come from outside, and when the family steps onto the deck, they see glowing objects falling from the sky. They fall closer and closer. Tom, taking a risk, starts the engine. He manages to steer the yacht away from the next meteorite, but the engine is finally damaged. The next object falls so close that the family can see they are artificial satellites. A strong wind begins to blow and the instruments go haywire. They put on life jackets and prepare for the worst when a strange ringing sound causes nosebleeds and nausea. Tom tries to signal for help with a flare gun, but it's in vain. In the morning, they are relieved to find themselves alive. But there's a gaping hole in the side of the yacht, and it's unclear how they're still afloat. When they step outside, they freeze in amazement. The water is gone, and their boat is now stranded on a rocky outcrop in the middle of a stony desert where the ocean once was. Sometime later, Tom tries to reassure his family, saying that not everyone could have perished. He takes measurements and realizes that the compass is lying. Such a thing has happened on Earth before, but long ago. It turns out the sea has retreated to where land used to be. Cassie can't bear this revelation and runs to the cabin, asking to be left alone. Meanwhile, Tom turns on the radio and sends out distress signals. Unexpectedly, he hears a response. It's from Nuto, the captain of a small submersible. They were deep underwater when the catastrophe happened, which is why they survived. According to his calculations, the sea will return in about a week, and it will be harsh. Nuto advises them to find higher ground and stay there. Julia orders the children to pack their things. Tom directly asks Nuto if he can save the children. Unfortunately, Nuto's partner died, and he can only take one person. After some persuasion, Tom convinces Nuto to take both children, and he provides his coordinates. Tom charts a course on the nautical map and promises to reach the location in a couple of days. The next morning, the family is almost ready to embark on their journey when Tom steps onto the deck and suddenly sees a man with a dog approaching. He walks toward him, offers him water, and the man drinks it. But then, without warning, the man punches Tom in the face. Julia rushes to her husband as the traveler plunges a makeshift spear into Tom's chest. She runs to the yacht, the man in pursuit. Despite being injured, she climbs onto the deck. Together, they barricade the doors to the cabin. Julia hides Cassie and Ben in a locker, giving Cassie the flare gun and instructing her to shoot only as a last resort. Julia hides in the bathroom, patching her wound. Holding a can of food, the man begins searching the yacht. Julia arms herself with a kitchen knife. As he enters the cabin, Julia jumps overboard, hiding beneath the yacht. However, the dog attacks Julia, forcing her to kill it. The man hears the yelp, goes outside, and finds the dog's body. Meanwhile, Julia climbs back onto the yacht through a porthole on the opposite side. She falls straight into the killer's hands. He beats her, throws her onto a couch, and grabs her throat, intending to strangle her. Cassie witnesses this and realizes it's the last resort. She opens the locker and fires at the man. The shot throws him to the side, but the flare sets the yacht on fire. Julia kicks him away, grabs the packed bags, and jumps overboard. Julia kisses her deceased husband, but seeing the killer leap from the burning yacht, She takes the children and runs. The family runs across the stony desert and soon takes shelter in a rocky canyon where a stream flows. Julia tells the children to gather themselves for the long journey ahead, but then she spots the killer again. That evening, Ben finds the carcass of a hammerhead shark and tries to butcher it. But Julia sees the pursuer and orders the children to run. Soon, Julia notices that Ben is severely dehydrated and gives him the last drops of water. Cassie has a breakdown, convinced that they have no chance of survival, but Julia commands them to keep moving. Eventually, they find the fuselage of a plane that crashed into the sea long ago and crawl inside to rest. The children weep, remembering their father and saying their final goodbyes to him. At night, Cassie is awakened by a noise and steps outside to sit near the plane. Out of the darkness, the killer approaches her, unaware that the girl is acting as bait. Julia ambushes him, stabbing the man with a knife. At dawn, the family prepares to continue their journey, only to discover that the killer's body has been scavenged. They move on. Julia consults the map when Ben suddenly rushes ahead. His mother yells for him to stop, but the boy sprints toward a salty puddle and manages to drink a few gulps. Julia drags him away, but the boy becomes sick. Soon, they come across some plastic chairs and build a makeshift shelter from the sun, resting inside it. Suddenly, Julia hears strange sounds. She steps outside and sees something that forces her to wake the children. Soon, they spot a large ship in the distance, surrounded by crashed containers and a few wandering people. Julia calls out to them, but they dash into a container and lock the doors, ignoring her pleas for help. The family climbs onto a container, but the crabs manage to wound Julia in the leg. Julia ties a scarf around her leg and passes out. The next morning, she wakes up alone, terrified, and calls for the children. It turns out the crabs have moved on, and the children had gone down to search for food and weapons. In the pocket of one of the deceased, Julia finds a radio and contacts Nuto. He responds, explaining that he was also attacked by deep-sea arthropods. Based on his observations, the sea will return soon. Nuto fires a flare. Ben sees the direction, and the family rushes toward it. Soon, they see a yellow submarine in the distance, but reaching it is difficult due to the terrain of the former seabed. They are forced to pass through a canyon contaminated with toxic waste. At one point, they are caught in a rock slide, and Julia becomes separated from the children. She orders them to continue, and when Cassie refuses, Julia pleads with her to save her brother. Cassie and Ben get out of the canyon and reach the submarine, but no one is inside. Suddenly, Nuto, who is badly hurt, comes out from behind the boat. He says he won't survive and tells them to get on the submarine. But Cassie goes back to help her mother, who is fighting off the crabs with only a few bullets left. Cassie climbs up the rocks and helps her mother. They reach the submarine just as the crabs kill Nuto. The family gets on the submarine, and a big ocean wave appears. The wave lifts the submarine and pushes it over the rocks. Julia looks at everything that has happened in the past few days, and she faints. When she wakes up, the submarine has stopped. Julia opens the hatch and the family comes out. They see that the wave brought them to a ruined city. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and see you in the next video.